Forget all that Clarice Farber being crap. This was his best work. Okay, everybody, today we're going all the way back to 1978 to look at a sometimes forgotten, completely overlooked horror masterpiece that needs a little bit more light shed upon it. We're talking about magic. But before we go any further, before we dive into this little gem anymore, once again, and as always, to the trailer.
When your heart begins to pound, when your mind begins to go, keep telling yourself, it's only a movie.
You do magic too?
Corky does magic. I only do tricks.
There's never been a magician like him. How long you been like this, kid?
You never really told why you were here.
Hiding. Wasn't that cheap in New York?
You want success, but you're afraid of it.
I figured I'd stop by here and ask you folks about you.
Not afraid.
Where were you living? What city? How many kids?
I'm not afraid.
Never expected to find you. I've loved you all my damn life.
I won't be here!
Hey.
I was afraid of success, like you said. I needed to get my head on straight.
And now you're fine?
Sure, on account of Peg. I've known her ever since high school. I never figured I'd have a chance with her.
Peggy, don't Peggy, no, please, let me follow. Wherever you go.
It's you and me, take her.
I love Peg.
Just the two of us. Now everything's changed. She believes me.
A man appears after 15 years. Says run away with me.
Don't do it. Oh, please, don't kill her.
No, I can't do it! I won't do it! You can't leave me!
Magic, a terrifying love story. Joseph E. Levine presents Magic, starring Anthony Hopkins, Ann-Margret, Burgess Meredith, and Lauter, distributed by 20th Century Fox.
This motion picture was directed by Richard Attenborough. I know, to most of you, he's probably famous for being an actor. Come on, he was the old man in Jurassic Park, you know what I'm talking about? But he did direct a bunch of cool stuff. So let's get talking about it. We're talking about, he did movies like Chaplin, A Chorus Line, Gandhi, A Bridge Too Far, In Love and War, Shadowlands, Cry Freedom, Oh What a Lovely War. So he didn't have a huge catalog. I think he only directed like 12 or 13 things, but he did some quality work. Okay, playing Corky, Anthony Hopkins. Let's get to work. He was in The Bounty, upon which he was awesome in Nixon, in Hitchcock, in Solace, in Thor, in The Right, in The Wolfman, and Bobby, in Mask of Zorro, in Bram Stoker's Dracula, and Audrey Rose, which I've done, you know that, A Change of Seasons, A Bridge Too Far, Amistad, Meet Joe Black, and of course, let's just get this shit out of the way. Silence of the Lambs, and Red Dragon, and what was the other one? Hannibal. So yes, Dr. Lecter, we get it. You know, to me, I always love Brian Cox's Dr. Lecter too, but whatever. He'll always be known for this Dr. Lecter thing. But really, he did better work in movies like The Bounty and in this. I'm just saying. Playing Peggy, and showing sides to her we've never seen before, Ann-Margret. Let's roll. We all know she was in Grumpy Old Man and Grumpier Old Man and The Grumpiest of Old Men, or whatever that trilogy is, but she was in some other things. We're talking about she was in stuff like Bye Bye Birdie, and Carnal Knowledge, and Made in Paris, and Tommy, come on, Stagecoach, and CC and Company, and The Cincinnati Kid, and The Pleasure Seekers, and Viva Las Vegas, and State Fair, and 52 Pickup, and Any Given Sunday. So, come on, she's legendary just for being Ann-Margret. I mean, you know. Playing Ben, Burgess Meredith. let's roll. Of course, he was in Rocky Uno, Dos, and Tres. Come on. He was also in things like Burnt Offerings. He was in things like Clash of the Titans and The Last Chase and Foul Play and The Hindenburg and Day of the Locust and The Sentinel. And then, of course, Grumpy Old Men stuff, the series, whole thing. And True Confessions and TV from like Twilight Zone to whack, 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 whack. Batman. Come on. He will always be the Penguin. Is what it is. Let's keep going. Play Duke. Ed Lauter. Let's do this. King Kong. He was also in Real Genius and Fat Man and Little Boy and Girls Just Want to Have Fun and Death Hunt and The Amateur and The Longest Yard. Come on, and every TV show known to mankind. I mean, I can't even list them all. I'm not even gonna bother. I'm not even gonna bother. He was on every goddamn TV show you could humanly imagine. His list of credits is like a couple hundred things. Is what it was. Let's keep going. And you know what else pops up in this? David Ogden Stiers. What? Yes. Let's get some things. Of course, he popped up in Doc Hollywood. Of course, he popped up in things like Jungle to Jungle and Better Off Dead and Harry's War and Oh God, but really, TV, dude. Matlock, Murder, She Wrote, Love and Money, massive amounts of voice work, video games, narration, you name it. Of course, you're going to remember him from MASH, just the way it goes. So, big career, long career. Not on the level of some of the other people that are in this as far as like notoriety, but he was around and on the scene a lot. Alright everybody, we're going to do this in 90 seconds or less so we can keep it short, keep it fast, keep it entertaining, keep it moving so we can get to We'd Much Rather Be. The summation. The movie starts out, you got this guy, Corky, and he's hanging out with his very ill-looking mentor, Merlin, who's a magician, and you find out that Corky is his, well, understudy, if you will. And he's asking Corky about how his night on stage went, and let's just say Corky's kind of making things sound a little bit better than they really went. Anyway, long story short, they're having this discussion. Scene ends. Movie picks up, apparently later in time by a couple of years, and you see Corky. He's got this routine going at the very same club, but now he's a star. He's got this agent, Burgess Meredith. He's sitting there bringing in TV executives to sit there and watch his routine because he's going to get this guy a TV show. Guy's like, really? This guy's comedy act ain't that great until Corky breaks out. Fats. The dummy. Basically, he's a ventriloquist. And the dummy is like a little bit abrasive, a little bit obnoxious. He sits there and he rips on Corky. He rips on the crowd. He's a big hit. They see stars lining up and money getting ready to be made. But before you know it, they ask Corky, they say, hey man, you're going to have to take a medical exams for insurance purposes, contracts, everybody does it. He refuses, doesn't want no part of it. And you don't know why, you'll find out later, but he doesn't want anything to do with anything like that. Before you know it, Corky just jets. That's right, he gets in a cab, he takes off, and he blows off the entire scene. Where's he going? You don't know. He goes and he winds up looking at his childhood place that he grew up, and then he winds up going to this little inn in the middle of nowhere because he had a crush on the daughter of the owners. Well, it turns out they're gone. The daughter runs it now with her, well, husband that she's not really in love with anymore, Duke. Yep. And there is just this couple living out in the middle of nowhere running an inn that nobody ever goes to. But Duke's away, and Corky will play. So he comes in, he gets a room, they reunite. A romance sparks, but there's a problem in the romance. Well, Fats ain't really approving of it. You get to find out that there's some real deep-seated dark issues with one Corky, and you wind up finding out that he's got a bit of a split personality that's broken between him and the dummy. Well, sooner or later, his agent finds him. I'm not going to tell you what happens to the agent, but it's not really good, and they kind of dispose of him. And then I'm going to tell you what happens to Duke when he shows up on the scene. I don't want to give too much away because that would really ruin the movie, but let's just say it's not good. And you find out that one Corky has one of the most darkest halves of his personality wrapped up into a dummy that you could ever imagine. And together, they do some pretty horrific things. I think that's about all I'm going to give you on this. You get the idea. You know where this is going. A guy with a dual personality wrapped up in a puppet gets talked into doing things by a puppet, but that's really him. There you go. Okay, everybody. Does magic work? Yes. Yes, magic works. Magic is one of the all-time classic, great little psychological drama, horror, almost supernatural flicks from a bygone time in the 70s that, well, you just don't get this kind of quality work in one motion picture anymore. Before we go any further, like I always say, let's get the big three out of the way. First off, the directing. The movie's beautiful. Attenborough does a great job. Every angle is well lit. Every angle is well shot and framed. The movie looks amazing. Actually, there's parts in the beginning of the movie that are almost too goddamn pretty. I mean, the cinematography in it is just astounding. So the motion picture looks great. And then when it's out there at the end, it's a good looking film. Enough said. The writing! Are you shitting me? Great dialogue. Especially between Corky and Fats, basically himself. It's one of those motion pictures where you're listening to every word, you're waiting to see where every word goes and to see where every conversation takes place. The writing in this thing is top level. It's all you need to know. Don't worry about that. In the acting. Wow. This is a small movie. But man, they are powerhouse packing some acting talent into this thing. I mean, from what you get, literally, what you get from Anthony Hopkins, along with The Bounty, is probably the best work he ever did. I mean, this is just, it's a tour de force of talent. Way better than the Hannibal Lecter. I know, the beans, and all that kind of shit. Yes, whatever. Fine. This eclipses that. It's way more dynamic. Covers way more ground. I'm telling you, this is a powerhouse performance. You throw in Burgess Meredith, who I love the way he kind of shaved his head to make look whatever he was doing. But great job. Great job. We'll get more into the scene with Burgess Meredith in a moment. But I'm just telling you, at Lauter, all of them, deliver. This is an acting tour de force. All you need to know. Okay, let's get back on track to why this motion picture works. It basically works because of two things. It is unsettling. Wait, I might have more than two. We'll see. It's unsettling. It's manipulative. It's one of those motion pictures that has you on the edge of your seat all the way through it. You never really know what this guy's going to do. You never really know how far he's going to go because he is such a broken individual. Let's get to it. You know this guy's kind of apeshit crazy almost from the beginning of the motion picture. You realize, but you don't realize how apeshit crazy. And they did it in a way that's really brilliant, because there's a lot of times during this motion picture you're going to wonder to yourself, is that fucking puppet really alive? Is this a supernatural movie, or is this all a psychological breakdown of this guy? And there's actually one scene where you actually see the puppet move on its own, but then they show it again and it's in the same place. You're like, did that movement just happening in his head and we're seeing it as he's seen it? So you have the angle in this motion picture, beyond the drama, beyond the suspense, is the tingling over of the supernatural, almost like you would get in something like High Plains Drifter, if you will. But the tingling over the supernatural into this, where you're like, they're manipulating you to wonder, is this him? Is this the puppet? Where am I going to land? And that is brilliant. Even though that really never takes place, it's brilliant that they keep you walking that line and keep you hanging on the edges to see which way it's really going to turn out. And one of the things, too, is not just the motion picture kind of manipulating you just a bit. It's the character. This guy, although he is kind of like just this wimpy, whatever kind of character, he is a manipulator. He is a manipulator. He's always trying to find an angle to get what he wants to get, whether it's with Ann-Margret or whether it's the business. He's always trying to find an angle around. But he's not really a strong, dangerous character, at least that part of him, until the character of Fats comes in and kind of guides him over. Even though it's all him, he's a man split into two pieces. And there's times you watch this motion picture and you're like, what would Ann-Margret see in this guy? Well, what they do is they make a fragility to this guy that is sitting there that lures people in. It lures in Ben, Burgess Meredith. It lures in Peggy, whatever, fucking Ann-Margret. And it makes people like sympathetic to this guy until they kind of see that this guy's got a much darker side. Some characters never see it, other people do. But it's that brilliance of making this character basically a fragile kind of imp, you know what I mean? He's just not the kind of guy that would naturally be intimidating. And behind it, underneath it, you lay in this dark, 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 dark side that is so afraid of failure, that is so afraid of losing, that literally he winds up psychologically splitting into two characters, himself, for what he is, and the Fats character, that's always the one, I'll guide you, I'll get you through, all that kind of psychological shit that you would maybe get in Psycho or something like that. So, it's brilliant, brilliant story writing, it's brilliant, brilliant acting, and it's really just well done and well delivered. And another thing with this motion picture is the pacing is incredible. Because there's no parts of this movie that you feel like you're in a dead spot. Let's face reality. Let's face reality with this. This is a small motion picture. It really is. It's not a big production number. Yes, you had the nightclub and all that kind of shit in the beginning and a couple city scenes. But this is really in a cabin or in a couple of rooms. Okay, on a rowboat a little bit. But this is a small motion picture. Most of it is dialogue between one or two people at a time in a room. That's all you're going to get. That's all that's taking place. But it's still suspenseful. It still moves you along. One of the most brilliant scenes I ever seen was the great scene where Burgess Meredith actually catches Corky having a fight with the puppet. And then he realizes how far gone this guy is. How completely insane this guy is. And he sits there almost sympathetically when he's like, wow, kid, you know, we need to help you. You know, you're... And the angle of money and all that leaves him. All he's thinking about is getting this guy some kind of help, because obviously something is wrong with him. And when Corky says, nothing's wrong with me, and he says, I'll give you a test. Make it so that Fats doesn't talk for 5 minutes. Now, in a motion picture, normally, in a situation like that, where it's just two people in a room looking at each other, making small talk, and trying to see how long this guy can go without talking in his other voice, that could be a real drag. It would slow the motion picture down. It would put like the Death March walk on it, would just really just bring it to its knees. Not here. The tension only grows because you're wondering what's going to happen. You know he's not going to pass the test. Something's going to go wrong. Some shit is going to break loose. What's going to happen? And the not knowing of what's going to happen, the tension is so extreme in a scene where there is literally nothing happening except masterful acting. So, it's that kind of motion picture. Now, is there any flaws to this motion picture? Dare I say, I don't really see any, or nothing worth bragging about. Some of the scenes in the beginning when he's in the nightclub, I think, are so expertly shot with the cinematography and the lighting. It almost feels dreamy. It's just too perfect. You know what I mean? I would have eased up on that a little bit. Also, the idea that Peggy is really so apeshit crazy about this guy so quick. I understand she's a broken character. I understand she's in a loveless marriage. I understand there's all kinds of things going on with her to lead her into the arms of this guy who she once knew in high school. But he reveals himself to be severely fucked up pretty quick in this motion picture to her. That scene at the table when they're playing the cards and the splitting game and all that kind of happy horse shit. The almost Anakin Skywalker scene is literally enough to send any person running out of the room saying, I gotta get away from this guy. He is ape shit fucking nuts. And you don't really understand why she stays. I mean, really? I don't get it. Because honestly, okay, I made the Anakin connection. In Attack of the Clones, remember Anakin goes crazy? And he does the whole thing with, like, you know, they're animals, and I slaughtered them like animals. I hate them, and all that kind of shit, right? And he reveals to Amidala that he's got anger and all that. Remember, he revealed that to her, but it didn't have anything to do with her. He was just saying what he did to the people that killed his mother. He never directed any of her. In this scene, in this motion picture, he directs it right at her when she isn't thinking hard enough and he might not guess the card correctly. What he does to her is just brutal. I mean, he's screaming at her, he's yelling at her, he's putting all the pressure on her, he's blaming her for everything. It's just harsh, where you're just like, man, lady, you better kick this man out your hotel or you better run for your life, because obviously he just showed you he's a fucking psychopath. So why the character that she is would stay through any situation like this, okay, maybe you can get a little bit murky. But other than that, I don't really think there's that many places that you can critique this motion picture and or shit on it. Okay, everybody, if you get a chance, get out there and watch Magic. It's kind of like a strangely forgotten or at least under talked about motion picture in the career of Anthony Hopkins, whose career has just been massively long. Everybody remembers Silence of the Lambs. Everybody remembers Hannibal or whatever the fuck the other one was. It doesn't make a difference. That will always be his legacy in the horror genre because the movie was phenomenal, Silence of the Lambs. But as far as an acting tour de force, from looking vulnerable to looking evil to looking angry to looking sad, to do some of these things all wrapped up in within a 60-second span, bouncing all over the place. This is the motion picture you're going to get it. This is the motion picture you're going to watch it. This is the performance you're probably going to remember in the end. And this is one of those things that people kind of overlook but never should. Great performance, great directing, great cast, great story, but a character that's a manipulator in a movie that's kind of manipulating you. Do you feel sad for him? Are you afraid of him? Is the puppet real? Is the puppet not real? We're going to jerk you around a bit and let you know in the end. All right, everybody. Be good. Take care. Stay out of trouble. Be kind to a stranger. Be there for a friend. But most of all, never, and I mean never, take any bullshit from anybody. See y'all